Hello, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Greet the Week. I'm Jan Moray, and I'm here with my co-host, Mona Duncan. And today, our topic is reversing the not enough mindset. How do we get out of that, where we think that there's just not enough? I'm upset because somebody has more than I do, and there's not enough for everybody. So what can we do about that, Mona?
Well, first of all, we have to recognize it. And maybe a way that we begin to actually recognize it is listen to our own speech. What do we say? Because words are powerful. Every word we use is powerful. And it's powerful not only in how it translates to the other person, but it's powerful with how our body receives it. So if we wake up in the morning and we say, oh, wow, I'm dragging because I didn't get enough sleep.
Yeah.
And then we don't have enough time. And then I don't have enough energy. I've got so many things to do, and I don't have enough energy. And I don't have enough this, and I don't have enough that, and I don't have enough clothes, and I don't have enough stuff. And I just don't have enough. I just don't have enough. And it seeps into our mentality. It seeps down into our being that, you know what? I'm not enough. I'm not enough.
Because because we don't have enough of a lot of other things in our lives, and as a result, we're not good enough, or we don't. Yeah.
And so, if we begin to realize that, what is enough? Well, it's enough. Some people say, "Well, I get 120%." No, you don't. You can't. You cannot give 120%.
Yeah.
Because if you're giving, so there's 10 of us on a committee, okay, and we each one have something that we're to do. Well, if someone is doing 110%, let's just even go to 110. They're not doing 110%. They're taking away someone else's portion. They just think they're doing so much because that was on the agenda of what needs to be done by this committee. And so,
somebody else's job and doing it.
Right. And it goes back to the fact that we cannot give what we do not have.
Right.
And so we must give, but our worldview seems to be, well, if I give something, because it's a gift, I'm giving something. So if I give it, then I no longer have it. But we got to look beyond that. Because, just contraire. Back to the fact, what we can give. All we can give is information.
Right.
Sometimes it can be, okay, let's go back to this. Everything that we think, everything that we do, whenever we're on that committee and we're coming up with the solution, all we're talking about is just ideas.
Mm-hmm.
All we're talking about is symbols. And we may need to build them, we may need to type them, but all it is, we're just talking about stuff that can become something. Because thoughts become things, ideas become things. And so, as we begin to come up with these ideas, but they're on paper. They're not done yet. It's not in the oven yet.
Right.
So, and these things take time. It takes time. But, you plant a seed today, and you're not going to have the plant come up and bloom tomorrow.
Right.
And some things take longer than others. You plant a apple seed today, and it'll take a long time until there are apples.
Correct.
But just like anything that appreciates goes up in value. The more we appreciate those little efforts that we're doing, and the fact that we do have enough. We do have enough. We wouldn't be as healthy, we wouldn't be as if we didn't have enough. So giving, as we begin to look at the supply and demand, there is enough of everything in this world for no one to ever be hungry.
Right.
There is enough of everything in this world to save the baby whales and the baby people.
Mm-hmm.
There's enough of everything in this world. We have enough. But we bottleneck it. We get stingy with just me and mine. I'm not going to give maybe I'm not going to give my ideas. I'm not going to give my insight. And maybe I don't because my giving of that insight's never been appreciated. And maybe it still won't be, but
how do you feel about it by holding back?
Yeah, it'll never get out there to be considered because maybe one on that committee of 10 will take it and consider it. And maybe they can say it in a way because, see, if you give the idea, the thing of it is everything that we give boomerangs back to us. Whether that is rudeness or whether that's politeness. Well, you go ahead. Oh, no, you go ahead. Oh, well, no, you go ahead.
But sometimes we want to see what others are doing before we are willing to do something.
Right. Let's see if there's any truth to this.
Yeah.
Let's see if anybody else would agree. Let's see if this.
Yeah. Or I'm not real sure about this, and I want to see if other people are supporting it because I'll wait until they start supporting it before I will.
Right. But back to our information, which is a gift. You give the information that helps a person to begin to rethink, Yeah. So anyway, so we give this information, and it not only are we giving it to them, but we're also receiving it because as we give really good information, it strengthens that resolve in us.
Yeah. Okay, can we talk about information for a little bit? I know you've got other things on your mind to talk about, but this is something that's just kind of come up with me recently is, we talk about constructive feedback and criticism and things, and a lot of people will look at information as being criticism or constructive feedback or, label it what you may. But when somebody is providing information, to provide information, to let you know, I'm thinking this, I'm not being judgmental, I'm not complaining, I'm not getting upset, I'm just letting you know that this is how I am taking that information. Because all information is so valuable. And I mean, it goes back to those days when I was a quality engineer, and we would, we looked at complaints differently. We looked at complaints as somebody is taking the time and making the effort to let you know that there's something wrong with the product, something that's not working quite well. And they could just as easily have decided they weren't going to buy from us anymore, go away and not be a customer anymore. But instead, they decided to tell us that there's something wrong with this product. Yes, they might be asking for money back or replacement or something else, but it's given us information that we need to look into that. And the same in your life, when somebody provides you information, you might feel defensive and want to defend yourself and kind of argue with them. No, that's not what I meant. But maybe it wasn't. I believe you, it's not what you meant, but this is how I perceived it. And so to look at information, to welcome information, because as soon as you start acting defensive, then that person isn't going to feel safe coming to you to talk to you anymore. They're going to close down. And well, this person never believes anything I say anyway. They're not interested in my opinion. And so I'm just going to withdraw and maybe leave. And I just wanted to throw that in there about information. When somebody's providing you information, to look at it as a gift that maybe it doesn't feel good at first, but maybe there's something to it.
Right. They're also giving you information.
Yes.
They're giving you information that I don't want to hear this.
Right.
I don't want to hear this. And I know back there was a time that, there's two incidents that went past this past week that is just speaking beautifully to this, Yeah. And anyway, this other person was griping and complaining, you got to this and you got to that. I mean, sometimes it is absolutely essential that you speak what you see as truth.
Mm-hmm.
But it can be offensive to others, and it can sometimes the messenger gets shot.
Right, absolutely. Absolutely.
You don't like the message.
Yeah.
But it depends on the messenger to continue, Okay, first of all, if we are getting the message, regardless of whether it's to criticize someone else's message they've given us or whatever, always have on your protective vest.
Yes, right.
So that bullet can, and it may break a bone, but it won't go in and kill the heart.
Right.
It may bruise deeply. But as long as we have on our protective vest, and then always be aware of the fact that the person we are giving that information to, they may not be wearing their protective vest.
Yeah, they might not have one.
So if we are the one, or when we are the one giving the information, make sure of the way we are doing, because they're giving us they've received that gift, but they may be throwing it back at us.
Yeah.
And we will, how do we handle it? You see, sometimes I'll just step aside and go ahead and let you stay there and be a donkey. And then maybe, just maybe, you'll see as others begin to embrace, and then sometimes you need to step down off of your own high horse.
Yeah.
You just never know.
No, you don't know. You don't know. But that's where you have to be aware, and be aware of how the other person's receiving it and responding to the information that you're giving to them. But if you really believe that's important information, then maybe you come back the next time and you say, okay, maybe I need to rephrase this, or sounds like you took this in a different way than I intended. That's important.
Okay, so in giving gifts, we may get a gift, whether it's words or whether it's something. We may get a gift because someone needs it, but guess what? It's not what they want.
Correct.
Which is kind of the same thing as giving the information, okay?
Right.
So in giving that gift, maybe, again, it goes back to whether we let them throw it in the trash. If they do throw it in the trash, then go for it, but don't be offended.
Right.
I gave it to you because I saw that it was something that you needed, wasn't something you wanted. Maybe later you will, maybe later, we're not responsible for those responses.
Yeah.
We're only responsible for our response, either in giving it and or in receiving the feedback, because it all boomerangs back to us. But we have a tendency to think, well, if I have given this, then it's out of my hands. But you see, just because you give that information to someone doesn't mean it's out of your hands.
Right.
Especially if you're put in that position to have others following along with what you've told them to do. Then we need to help them become accountable. And sometimes it's by moving on. But as we learn within ourselves, it can be where we can begin to join together. Can you hang around a little while and just see? Help us test it out.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that I like to look at is how many times do I personally guilty of using, for example, not enough, whatever it is. How often am I using that as an unquestioned answer?
That somebody should understand that's a real thing, that's really what's going on.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And sometimes even to the other person, I'll say, no, wait a minute, I don't have enough money. Well, that was pretty quick. Are you sure that's not an unquestioned answer? Well, why did you, I couldn't help it. I just couldn't help it. That was pretty quick. Sounds to me like that's an unquestioned answer.
Or just an excuse.
Well, it's a poor excuse, but it's an unquestioned answer. See, we have these, here's my guns. I'll just shoot them. Here's my pat answer. There's that pat answer. Well, that's the question. This is my answer. But how often do we question it?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not talking go to war with it.
Right.
I'm talking just release the tension to question just a little bit. Did I have enough sleep? Well, maybe not. For real. But what can I do about it? Do I have enough money? Well, maybe on paper, but not in reality.
Yeah.
But sometimes it is in reality whenever we honor what we have figured out on paper. Because see, all those initial words, they're just symbols. We're using a word. We're putting down a number for something. We're putting down it's the ingredients that eventually will rise or fall, that will eventually produce the tree, or it's how is it going to be made from this initial nascent idea into something that is doable.
Yeah.
A while back, I don't know if I read it or watched it, but it was Jimmy Carter. And you know how much he has done with Habitat for Humanity.
Right.
And continues to do that. And even won, I think, a Nobel Prize for it. But anyway, that he was asked what all he had learned through that, how he was given the accolades. And one of the things that he said was that he learned that there are no inferior people.
Right. Yeah.
And he learned also that there are no superior people. That everyone has their place. That the people that they were building houses for, many of them had come from prisons from having committed horrible crimes. Many of them had been generations of being reared in poverty. But he began to realize that they are there. They have caught a vision that they didn't have. And they're putting in sweat equity. They're putting in their portion. And that there are no inferior people. And he began to realize that, even though I've been president of one of the greatest countries, there are no superior people. And so we began to look at all of this, and back to our, if all of this is the enough, and over here is the not enough, and I don't have enough, and I need enough. But look what a disparity there is. What a disparity. So there is enough. There really is.
There is enough.
We may have to really do some deep thinking. I know as a kid growing up, there was a plaque, embroidered plaque hanging on the wall. It was a Shaker motto. And it said, use it up, wear it out, make it do without.
So say that again, use it up, wear it out.
Make it do.
Make it do
Without.
Do without.
Yeah. Use it up, wear it out, make it do without. And I still do that to this day. I mean, in recycling, I still cut open the lotion bottles because there's enough down in the bottom for 2 days.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I use all those to the very end. Absolutely.
But the thing of it is, I don't have to.
No.
But why not? Why be wasteful?
Right.
Why do I choose to do those things? Because I don't want to go back into that not enough mentality. I don't want to go back into that stinginess mentality. I want to live in and even blossom and continue to grow abundance mentality because it's here. It's here.
It is here. It is, and there's not a finite amount. There's enough for everybody.
There's enough. And how do I, in my own attitudes, bottleneck it to not have enough? How do I misuse it? How do I, what's our answers? Well, our answers is to that not enough. And in that not enough mentality, what we automatically think is more is better.
Yeah, right.
More what? Well, in learning about and reading about and even teaching the concepts of bridges out of poverty, it's the fact that so many times, the more is better, as in the what some people may call poor or an inferior neighborhood or whatever, that it's just food. It doesn't matter what it is. It's pasta. It's just more, as long as there's enough of it. And yet, sometimes as we begin to realize, well, even having enough of it is going to, that doesn't necessarily mean you're healthy.
No.
And that sometimes instead of all those things that add on the poundage, that add on the weight, whether it's debt or whatever it is, okay? Whether it's pounds or whether it's debt or whether it's anguish and sadness or anything that adds on that weight, as we begin to look at it and say, oh, but I have this appetite for it. I have this need for it. But maybe, just maybe, as we could begin to develop some new taste or get some additional insights, begin to challenge our own conceptions to see if there's any truth to it or not.
Yeah. Or because step back and see if we are getting more, more of what we're asking for, if that's really getting us where we want to go. And what did I think was going to happen when I got more of this, more money, more,
right,
whatever. And so when you start getting it, is it really giving me what I thought it was? Or am I still asking for, or would I still not have enough and keep wanting more? I'm never getting satisfied.
So it's looking that there really is enough. More is not necessarily better, although, who was it that said, I've been happy rich and happy poor, and happy rich is better?
Oh.
It's okay to have a little wiggle room there. Yeah, but if you don't have, more is not necessarily better. Sometimes getting more and more and more can really take us down that slippery slope.
Yeah. Of
having more, because that added to who I was, because in looking at our not enough would be, I'm not enough. Yeah. I'm not enough. Anyway, and then
adding more stress to us because we keep thinking we need to get more, and we don't really know how to get more, but we have the mindset that we're not enough unless we're getting more.
And so what happens all too often is we have to settle it because we need to have it settled. We can't function, we can't sleep, we can't anything unless there's some settling to it. Even if we fall asleep simply because we are absolutely exhausted, our body will take over. Our survival need will take over to sleep. So we settle it, and so we settle it with another unquestioned answer, which is, that's just the way it is.
Oh.
That's just the way it is. But it's not. It's not the way it is. Because there are too many people, companies, incidences that have learned and have overcome and made remarkable changes. But it all every change is an inside job.
Yeah.
Whether it's the status quo, the moving up the ladder, or the slippery slope. And so, as we begin to realize that and challenge some of those unquestioned answers, realizing that, still have the friend at the little shop that's no longer there, they had a little store, and people in the neighborhood would come over and, need things, and sometimes they could pay for it, and sometimes they didn't. And is there anything else? And the owner would say, well, I'll put it on your tab. Go ahead and take it. You need it. I'll put it on your tab. And the thing of it is, sometimes he did and sometimes he didn't.
Yeah.
Sometimes he'd put it on the tab and the son, more is better. And the son would, or the kiddos would just get real, Dad, Mom, y'all were just, and he said, we have enough. We have enough. We have enough. Now, you know what? I can just tell you that, this is a pretty good, that 75% of the people would not say that mode of living was enough.
Right.
You know what? There was peace there. And to them, it was enough. It's enough. So, as we give to others, we're giving to ourselves. And if nothing else, let's give them the grace. The grace to disagree. But I tell you what, let's see if we can, let's look at this. Let's just try and see. Are you willing to try?
You look at that person, and if he did, keep the tab and did come after the people to pay them for what they owed him, that probably would have resulted in frustration or anxiety within the guy, and unhappiness trying to go ask these people and put them in a bad spot, and that probably took a lot away from his general well-being, from having to go after and collect the money and to let people know that they owed him the money, whereas he felt probably a lot of satisfaction from allowing people to take the stuff and not taking it. So yes, he would have been right in going back to get everyone to pay him back, but what would that have done to the friendship? They probably thought a lot more of him and probably did things for him aside from paying him back and monetarily that was definitely worth it in the long run for him.
We cannot give anything without receiving. And again, that everything is going to either be, the giving and the receiving is either giving it ugly hateful or receiving it ugly hateful.
Mm-hmm.
Or giving it in a little bit of grace, or being the one that has to tell the truth even though you may get shot. Or being the one that receives the truth even though we may want to shoot them.
Yeah.
There's always that giving and that receiving. And so the beauty of learning that it really is enough is the recognition that sacrifice is not a big deal. Just trying to see, I don't believe it, oh, good, yeah, we'll do this, and maybe I'll even get in there and sabotage so that it'll turn out so it won't be right, what you're saying you need to do. Yeah. So there, you never know what those, but the beauty is once we see it, once we can really see it, is that sacrifice is just not a big deal. Whenever Garland and I were married 7 years before they had a bambino on the way.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be right up front, and he was in agreement. Right up front, I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. But we had house mortgage and, putting figures to the paper and all that kind of stuff. It was not that doable. I had a really good job with promotions on the way and a banking position and everything. It was already, anyway, said all that, so began to put everything down. And wanted to pay our mortgage off so that whenever, could stay home, and then how we could live on just his income after the mortgage was paid and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And you know what? It was not a problem to cook instead of eat out.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a sacrifice. It was not a sacrifice. Whenever you see value, then you have permission to sacrifice, but it's not. It becomes that challenge because you are challenging those unquestioned answers that we previously had been giving.
Yeah.
And the beauty of it is that we begin to recognize that all of these illusions that we've had begin to disappear. That illusion that says, well, what is that boss? What do they think they know?
Yeah.
That illusion that can't live on this income.
I think that kind of ties in with what we were talking about last week, the whole thing of taking responsibility. When you're not doing those answers that, where there's not enough, you're taking responsibility for, well, I'm going to have to cook now. We don't have the luxury of being able to go out to eat. But in taking that responsibility, you do feel joy in it. You do feel good about yourself and that you've accomplished something because you're being responsible. You know that you don't have the money coming in anymore, but it's okay. You're really doing the thing you wanted. You wanted to be home with your little girl, and that meant a whole lot, and it was certainly worth the trouble of cooking a meal every once in a while, every night.
And once it really goes through our valuing filter and we realize it's a value worth pursuing,
Yeah, yeah,
then it stays the yellow, which is pretty neutral, or it turns even green, which, oh, wow, I'm learning a lot doing this, as opposed to the red, where I'm really giving all my energy to do this because it is valuable, but we don't see the value in it.
yeah. Or we still have in the back of our mind that we really don't want to do this. This
Right.
really isn't what I want to do.
And
It's not worth the sacrifice.
sometimes we have to change our want to, and
Yes.
sometimes we literally need to change our job.
Yeah.
Or change our house, downsize,
Right.
or change the car, go to one. I know I had a guy one time that was in one of my support groups, and he came in with this brand new big truck, and I mean, he was the talk of the town, talk of the support group, and he'd take people for rides and let them drive it and all this. I mean, he was big man on campus.
Yeah.
2 months.
Oh, then the novelty wore out. Yeah.
Yeah. I've already been in that. Yeah, it's kind of nice. Yeah, it was nice.
Yeah.
Anyway, he began to realize that more is not necessarily better.
Right.
And that the vehicle I did have was okay.
Right.
And he downsized.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. He stepped down off of his high horse of trying to use something else to prove that he was enough.
Yeah.
And realized that having some mobility to get from point A to point B is more important than to having what I thought was making me enough.
Right. Well, that's a great story to end on. We're out of time for this week's edition. So thanks, Mona, for that. And we'll see everybody next week on another edition of Greet the Week. See you then.